Hi everyone, we are from Group 6. Today we are going to summarize our literature review based on topic Participative Budgeting. Focus on the impact of participative budgeting. For the introduction, Langfing Smith et al. 2019 state that participative budgeting is a process where managers who are held accountable for budget performance help to develop their own budget estimate. Budgeting participative is a process that describes the individual involved in budgeting and has an influence on budget target and the necessity of award for budget achievement by Brownell 1982. The importance of participative budgeting is participative budgeting can encourage communication between managers at various levels to achieve budget goals. In addition, increase the morale of employees to carry out tasks, especially in the budgeting process because they are given the opportunity to be involved in the budgeting process. Next, increase job satisfaction and employee creativity. The purpose of this review on participative budgeting is to identify the impact of participative budgeting in the management. For the first research article that are found by Kaha et al. 2016, they used a method survey and the sample for the research is 85 budget managers of regional work units in the North Maluku Province Government Indonesia. The independent variable for this research is participative budgeting. The dependent variable for this research is budgetary slack. And the result is increasingly subordinate involvement in the budgeting process, either able to put pressure or lower budgetary slack. For future research, job satisfaction is expected to be an independent variable. The next research article that I found is by Mardhiyyah et al. 2020. They used a method survey. The sample is 100 structural agency of the regional work unit in Jakarta. The independent variable is organizational commitment and procedural fairness. The dependent variable is participative budgeting and its impact on management performance. The result is management performance and participatory budgeting are not influenced by organizational commitment. Procedural fairness has a positive and important impact on participatory budgeting and management performance. Participatory budgeting has a good and important impact either directly or indirectly on management performance. The future research is increase the number of samples so that the data results are obtained better. So for the first article, impact on budgetary slack. Participative budgeting can have an impact on budgetary slack as studied by Kaha etc. all 2016. In their research, we studied the relationship of participative budgeting with budgetary slack in the Indonesian public sector. Through this study, using a survey, a total of 185 respondents who are budget managers working in the government district of North Maluku Province, Indonesia have been involved. To identify the relationship and effect between participative budgeting and budgetary slack, structural equation modeling has been used. Result of the study show when many parties involved in this budgeting process, it can cause pressure or reduce the budgetary slack. The involvement of the superior gives the subordinate the opportunity to get involved in making decisions in the budgeting process, give them the opportunity to stand out by giving ideas to choose the best decision in the budgeting process to achieve budget goals. It can increase the motivation of subordinates to continue and improve their performance. Therefore, it shows that the highest participative budgeting can either reduce or pressure budgetary slack. Impact on managerial performance. Participative budgeting can have an impact on the company management performance, as proved through research by Mardhiyyah et al. 2020. This study was conducted in Jakarta, Indonesia, involving 100 regional work unit structural agency in Jakarta as a sample, and the data were collected through questionnaire. The purpose is to study the impact of organizational commitment and procedural fairness to participatory budgeting, organizational commitment and fairness procedure, management performance, and participatory estimation of management performance. Path analysis with SMART PLS has been used as a method of data analysis to test the direct or indirect effect between variables. This study used quantitative method by examining the impact of the influence of organizational justice commitment and procedural fairness on participatory budgeting and its impact on management performance. Through this study, it is proven that the participatory budgeting can have a positive impact either directly or indirectly on management performance. This is because the involvement of manager from low level to high level manager allow management performance to be better. Therefore, it shows that participative budgeting can affect managerial performance.
Okay, next we continue to the research has been studied by Vidana Putra and Mimba, which is the influence of participative budgeting on budgetary slack in composing local government's budget in Bali province. The researcher has studied the effect of participative budgeting on the budget slack by formulating the Bali province 9 local government's budget using career uncertainty as the moderating variable. This research used the primary data collected from the survey involving 686 middle-level employees as respondents, which are from Sub-Department Head of Finance and Sub-Department Head of Planning and General Affairs in each of the 9 local governments of the Bali province. The data analysis method is used to measure the alpha Cronbach coefficient from all the variables, which is participative budgeting, budget slack, and career uncertainty. The findings indicate that the relationship between the participative budgeting and budgetary slack can be moderated by career uncertainty. Participative budgeting and career uncertainty can be said to affect budgetary slack at the same time. The findings show that the higher a person's level of job uncertainty or the career uncertainty in a position, the smaller the budget slack at the time of budget realization. Or in other words, we can say that the more the participation in the budgeting process, the budget slack can be reduced. The slack were made to make the employees' performance look great, as this verified that they were capable of doing the work according to the target. The budgeting slack was performed so that the increase of performance can be seen in the relation to the budget. Okay, next we continue to the research that studied by Shakib Arsalat and other authors, which is effect of participative budgeting, the organizational commitment and work motivation on managerial performance. The study is to evaluate the participative budgeting, the organizational commitment and work motivation on managerial performance of some automotive dealer in Bandung. The method used in this research is explanatory research method using a survey approach which conducted on 179 dealer manager. The result of this analysis show that participative budget, organization commitment and work motivation has positive influence on managerial performance. During this study, the participative budgeting performed by the dealers in Bandung has an effect on the effectiveness of a managerial performance. The higher the participation of manager in the process of budget planning, the higher quality a managerial performance of the dealer. Thus, it can be seen that the increasing participation of manager in participative budgeting will has a positive and stronger effect on the development of managerial performance. This study demonstrates that there is other variables, which is the organizational commitment and work motivation, that need to be addressed that can be impact on the manager's efficiency or managerial performance. If participative budgeting is relevant to managers in achieving their result or achieving their target, participative budgeting will get the attention of managers. The outcome of the finding of this research is that participative budgeting must be able to represent activities that are useful for assessing the success of the management. Okay, for the decision metric, it is the same point as what I already explained in my review or my summary, but I just make it simple and easier to see it by column it or by table it separately from the method, sample, independent variable, dependent variable, result, and also future research. I'm not gonna explain again the point that I already said in my review, but I just want to highlight the future research in this literature metric. Okay, first for the research that studied by Widana Putra and Mimba that explain the effect of participative budgeting on budgetary slack. It stated that this study can also be fruitful in determining job mutation by showing more transparent job criteria because of the career clarity of local government staff can influence their attitude, especially in composing a budget. Okay, next for the research that studied by Shakib Rasan and other authors that explain or evaluate the effect of participative budgeting, organization commitment and work motivation on managerial performance. In these studies, the future research that suggested by the author is the dealer manager should include subordinates, which is bottom-up approach to participate in budget preparation until final decision making in accordance with their fields and try to consider the contributions of manager in providing input on the budget that is arranged so that manager feel much of their influence reflected in the final budget.
Next, I will continue with the other studies when want to prove the participative budgeting can cause the budgetary slide. So, in order to perform the study, it used meta-analysis method, which involved 14 empirical studies and found 3 hypotheses. The second hypothesis said that country geographic location intervenes in the relation between participative budgeting and the budgetary slide. And the third hypothesis states that the type of organization intervenes in the relation between participative budgeting and the budgetary slide. However, these two hypotheses rejected due to not have the intervenes between them at all actually. But the first hypothesis, which is said there is an association between participative budgeting and the budgetary slide, is accepted. This study shows that there is a negative relation between participation and the tendency of managers to create slack, because the participation is actually reduced the slack. Participation encourages the other parties to develop ideas together that create positive surrounding which can reduce the burden of managers in managing, as well as can avoid the budgeting slack. On the other hand, the study also proved that the first hypothesis with the relation between the commitment of managers and the slack reduction. If the organization commitment of manager is high, participation is likely to result in a reduction in slack, while in a low condition, participation is likely to enhance slack creation. Next, the study is to prove the participation impact the design of the budgeting process. This research used a survey method to find the truth about the manager's participation in budgeting process, whether they are needed or not. Through this survey, it proved that managers' participation in the budgeting process is not recommended to be used since it is harmful to the company with excessive payments given to the division when the managers misreports and detrimental the company when misreporting lead to distorting the coordination. The company also does not enable the managers to receive any private information, since whenever it is allowed, the private information also can be used by the managers to coordinate the other operations using the same information.
Okay, for the conclusion, the purpose of this review was to view the trend in studies and help students understand deeper about the participative budgeting in management. From all the journals which have been studied, we found that participative budgeting has affected the budget slack, managerial performance, and the design of the budgeting process. What can we see from this review are the positive impact of participative budgeting on the budgeting slack and the managerial performance. In budgeting slack, we can conclude that the participation in a budgeting process can reduce the budgetary slack because of rising in motivation of the employees. As well as managerial performance, the participation of manager in budgeting process can result in effort and motivation of the employees to contribute ideas in order to achieve their target and make the management performance to be better. But it is different to the design of budgeting process, where it gives a negative impact of participative budgeting on it, since it is harmful to the company with the excessive payment given to the division because of manager misreports.
Here we can conclude that the result of the studies were not positive evidence for effects on the design of the budgetary slack, since the transformation of information can be misreported. But there is a strong association between the participative budgeting with the budgetary slack and the managerial performance. Participative budgeting can give a positive impact on the budgetary slack when participative budgeting has increased employees' motivation whenever their suggestion is taken into account, as well as can impact the managerial performance when the employees contributing ideas.